when that accident happened, I was like, I could die tomorrow.
That's
and
right.
If I'm dying tomorrow, it is not in a turkey sweater. Life is so magic in its mess that we can be any person we want at any time in our life. It's always available for reinvention, and step into it. Why are you climbing a mountain called I'm a Dumb Blonde instead of a real mountain like Mount Everest?
Oh, that's fantastic.
I'm a dumb blonde. The blonde, not I'm a dumb blonde, sweetheart. All of the things that had to go into motion for me to stand on the top of that mountain for 10 minutes.
For 10 minutes. Yep.
It's just like you can't even put words to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm doing this. I don't know anything about this, but I am in.
Oh my gosh, that is insane.
Jen Drummond is a record-breaking mountaineer, resilience expert, and mother of 7 who defied the odds to become the first woman to summit the 7-second summits. After surviving a life-threatening car accident, she turned adversity into adventure, proving that limits are meant to be pushed. She's also the host of the Seek Your Summit podcast and author of Breakproof. In this episode, we dive into her incredible journey of grit, purpose, and peak performance.
You could be extremely successful in finance and you want to go into a tech startup, or if you can be an engineer and you want to start writing a book. What is wrong with you? Hey, if you enjoy my podcast, you're going to love my weekly newsletter. Every week, I share strategies for success and significance because, let's be honest, who doesn't want both? We're talking life-changing wisdom that has transformed my life and the lives of people I've coached all over the world. You can start with the free version, but if you upgrade to the paid version, you'll unlock exclusive perks like early access to my monthly webinars, interviews with top experts, and even a signed copy of my book. Subscribe at christianrayflores.com. Your future self will thank you. Jen, you are a fascinating human being. Thank you for coming.
Well, I think you are too. That's how we came into contact with each other.
Oh, I appreciate that. Okay, so I want to start with sort of the middle, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll go sort of in each direction. However the spirit moves. So you have climbed 7 of the second highest peaks in the world, right? Which is on its own merit amazing. Like, it's just for anybody, right? It's just amazing. But the thing is, I had the impression when I was sort of doing some research preliminarily that this is what you are. This is you're an athlete. You're a climber. This is what you do. It's an amazing feat of endurance and fitness and focus. And then I realized all of a sudden that didn't happen until after you had this car accident.
Yeah.
And before that, there was completely different. There's a before life that you were in finance. You were a mom. You're a family person, etc. You're a business person. And then after that, there was this massive shift. So can we talk on that focal point? Can we talk about that event that became a catalyst for complete transformation? So What happened with the car accident?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I was reading this book called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. Okay. And until that point, I was like, surrender's a weakness. Like, who would surrender? You don't wave your flag. And I read the book. I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's not a weakness. And I kind of journaled on the word and all this kind of stuff. And then on December 18 of 2018, I was driving on the highway and I was driving fast and a semi truck was slow pulling an extra trailer behind it. And I'm like, I'm going to hit this trailer. And so I looked in my rearview mirror to get out of the way. And I just didn't get out of the way in time. And so the passenger side of my car hit the back end of the second trailer. And I went end over end a handful of times, and then rolled sideways until the car came to a complete stop. And I was hanging upside down in the median, of which Hollywood has trained us that another car is going to come and smack you. So yes. I remember like sitting there just waiting to be smacked again. And
you were alert, right? You didn't lose consciousness.
Yeah. Here's the crazy thing. Like the minute the car hit the semi, I like first negotiated with death, like, please save me. I'll do something good with my life. And then I was like, you know what? The only way I'm going to survive this car accident is if I surrender. Because if I do life like I'd been doing life before, when things got hard, I'd just go harder and push more and do whatever. Yeah. Like, I'm not competition for this vehicle and the speed and all the things that are going on. So if I can just like stay with the motion of the car, maybe I won't like have the resistance cause any damages. And so I remember like putting my hands on the steering wheel, my head on the headrest, and counting like, okay, I'm going to go over one more time. Okay, I'm going to go over one more time. Okay, now the car's losing momentum. I'm going to start doing sideways rolls. And so when I was hanging upside in the median, I must have kind of been out of it because I could hear someone yelling, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?" But I wasn't connecting that they were talking to me. Right? Like you heard it, but you weren't registering that that was something. And so then the guy pulls back the windshield because it crumbled into 1,000 pieces. And we connect eyes. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I remember looking at this guy in the eyes thinking, I'm not okay. Like that guy's eyes are telling me I am not okay. And I was too afraid to look
Yeah, of course.
because I didn't want, like my body felt warm and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh my God, if I
Yeah,
look,
you're
then
in
I'm
shock.
done.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I closed my eyes and I wiggled my fingers and toes.
Right.
I can feel my fingers and toes. I can feel my fingers and toes. And the guy is like, okay, I think you're going to be okay, but I'm going to keep you here until the ambulance comes because I just don't know. And so we sat there and talked until the ambulance came and I went
Did
to the
he cut you
hospital.
loose because you were upside down? Did you?
No, he didn't want to because he didn't know if something was like, we didn't know,
You
right?
don't want to mess with it, right? You just stay
like
where
because
you are.
if there's an injury or whatever, like you don't want to jerk somebody's neck and have a problem or something. We had no idea if I was what was going on.
So in that when you said that you had this dialogue, this isn't a split second situation, right? What is?
Yeah, but when you're in these moments, time dilates.
It does. It really does. Yeah, I've seen that. I've experienced that.
Yeah, like I even experienced it as a kid. I was babysitting my sister and she was in the swimming pool and she somehow tipped upside down. And so like to get to her in the pool felt like 5 days, but it was less than 5 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And when you're in this car accident, I mean, I counted, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go over again. Okay, keep my hands on the steering wheel because I don't want to lose my fingers. Keep my head on the headrest. We're going to go again. Like it's so funny how many thoughts you can have.
You know, I had a similar thing. It was so strange that you mentioned the swimming pool, right? And I'm on this trampoline and I want to do a backflip. And I do a backflip and I realize, and literally time slows down, and I realize that my head is coming down to the tip of the trampoline. And I'm looking down and I'm like, I'm going to hit my head on the trampoline. And then I put my hand on the trampoline. I see it come like this far from me, and then I remove my head as if it's in ultra slow motion. Yeah. And that's how I experienced it.
Yeah, right.
It's so strange.
It is strange. We have these amazing abilities to like slow the.
And like because you had that book in your mind, that was also a little spark, correct? Like the whole surrender thing in the moment.
Yeah, no. It was like literally, I'm like, okay, I just read this book. I just journaled on this topic. The universe is really testing me. Am I really going to live this, or am I just going to like read this and regurgitate it? And so then when I sat there, I'm like, this is my chance to really live this surrender experiment. And so I did.
Okay, so let me ask you this, and I want to unpack this. You journaled. I am a huge believer in journaling as a metacognition practice, right? You develop this ability to be self-aware, to process your emotions. Did you have that practice regularly? Was it something that was taught to you? How'd that come?
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of journaling. Because for me, my life gets overwhelming until I put it on paper. Okay. And then when it's on paper, I'm like, oh, actually, that's the same thing.
That's exactly
disguising itself as many things, and it's not many things, it's one.
Yeah, you process an emotion that's sort of general, and you structure it into something that you can process.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's good. Yeah, I like that a lot. I teach that. I train people in that, all of that. So that's really interesting to me. Okay, so the ambulance comes in. What happens next?
Ambulance comes in and takes me to the hospital. And I get, like, they run every check under the sun. And I go home the same day.
You do.
And I remember walking into the front door of my house. And I can, like, still, like, everything's a vivid picture, right? It's like almost like a photograph that's in your mind that you'll never get rid of. And I walk in the front door, and I have 7 children. So I hear kids, like, screaming and yelling and playing. One speeds by me on rollerblades in the house. I can see like to the kitchen a little bit that there's drinks and pizza and all that, like, just like messy
Chaos.
life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just remember being so grateful. Like, normally I would be like, why are your rollerblades on? Be nice to your sister. Who left the pizza out? Right. Like all of that.
Yeah.
And I could like hear myself be that person.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm not that person. Like, this is just, life is so magic in its mess. And I just want to take this in because this is life.
Yes. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, all of it is a gift, right?
All of it's a gift. Like, and it was like that. I mean, it's not like that anymore. I'll be honest. Like, it wears off. Okay. I wish it didn't wear off, but it wears off. But it was like that for like 3 months. I just felt surreal.
Yeah.
And
It's almost
I would
like
walk.
you gain perspective that is completely different.
Yeah. Like I remember the year before, it was so vivid because it was the week before Christmas. So when I had Christmas that year, and the kids were opening Christmas presents. The year before, I was behind them with a garbage bag, right? Like picking it all up because there was garbage everywhere.
Yeah.
This year, I just am sitting there watching them, their little fingers open the present and their excitement of how fast they figure out what it is. And are they going to look at it, or are they like going to throw it in a pile and pick the next present? Or like, right. You pick up all these granular details that we sometimes lose the magic in.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. And you said, I think you mentioned offline that, was it the police or the ambulance people that said that they don't understand how you survived?
I mean, it was everybody. So when the ambulance came, they said, they're like, oh man, dead. There's no way. I mean, my car looked like a tin can. And so, but then they got there, like, we can't even believe this. And what happened is, because it's an area that's actually had a few accidents, the police rebuilt the accident scene to try to figure out what they can do to make it safer so that there's less problems in this intersection area. And they called me and they're like, we want to let you know, we've rebuilt this accident, every like computer module possible, and we cannot build a scenario where you live, let alone walk away. And why this is so significant to me is because life's a lot of timing. And about that next week, after I got that call from the police, I got a call from my girlfriend to go running in Salt Lake City. And it was wet out a little bit, like it was raining. And she's like, oh, just come down and run with me. And I'm like, I'm a fair weather runner, but thank you. And later on that afternoon, I got a call from her husband. He's like, hey, I just want to let you know, she went out for a run today. She slipped, hit her head on a rock at the wrong space, and is not coming home.
Oh, jeez.
And so you're sitting there like metabolizing these like like I did this crazy flipping whatever thing, and my car is extremely totaled, and she goes and does something healthy and doesn't get to come home. So I just sat with that for a while. And what does this all mean? And what we're such meaning deriving creatures.
We are.
And I just came up with the fact that we don't get to choose when we die, but we sure get to choose how we live. And this life is a gift, and what we do with it is our gift back.
So before that realization, before you came up with this insight that it's profound, life-changing, you had a full life, right? You own
on paper.
You have finance. You own a finance company. You have 7 children. You're married. I mean, that's a full life.
Yeah.
What's the on paper piece that was missing that you realized?
You know, on paper it looks great, right? Like you have the house, you have the vacations, you have the cars. I get to stay at home with my kids, like all that kind of stuff. I was checking all the boxes that I thought you were supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
Go to college, get a job, have kids, all the things. And in the process of chasing that external to-do list, I kind of lost track of who I was or what I wanted or what I was interested in and all that. And that the car accident happened at the perfect time, because the month before the car accident, which was kind of when I started reading the book, I was running a holiday party for my kids' school, right? Thanksgiving. And because I was a stay-at-home mom, I was like the classroom mom in every classroom, because what else do you do with yourself? And one of the moms that was helping me came in with a turkey sweater and turkey socks and like this turkey hair clip and had an extra set for me.
Oh
And she's
my
like, I know, I thought this would be so cute if we did this together, that I bought you a matching set with me. And I looked at her and I smiled and I went into the bathroom and fought back tears, wondering what I did with my life, that this is where I'm at right now.
Oh,
Right? It was
that's
just one of those like Pinterest moments. I'm not a Pinterest mom. I'm glad there's Pinterest moms. It is not me. And here I am in a freaking turkey sweater.
you're in the turkey sweater. That's a reality check, right?
It was so bad. And so then all of a sudden, like, and the thing, like the dialogue I had was, I'm a mom. I am so lucky for all the things I have, that I get to be home with these kids full time. Like, I should be so grateful.
Of
It is
course.
so bad that I'm doubting this or shaming that. Like, how could I be this ungrateful? So I told myself, I'm like, you know what? When my kids get done with college, then I'll get back to me. And that was my sentencing. Like, this is the season I'm in. We're going to make the best of it. And this is what it is. And then when that accident happened, I was like, I could die tomorrow.
That's
And
right.
if I'm dying tomorrow, it is not in a turkey sweater.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a really interesting insight, and I would love for you to unpack this, because I had a realization like that. That was actually the opposite. I was uh, on a train going on a musical tour with my band. I had like an entourage of 21 people, something like that. And I was in between cities, and at the time I was doing sports arenas as an artist, right, in Eastern Europe. And I was looking out, and there were parts of me. So on some sense, I was actually living sort of the peak life, especially for an artist, right? Because very few people get to do that. But there were parts of me that were dormant.
Yeah.
Right. I had I speak different languages. I have an economics degree. I've grown up all over the world, and I'm in this one sort of area of Eastern Europe. I mean, it's a nice area. It's 15 different countries. So, and that's what made it problematic, is because that's exactly what I felt. I was like, I felt guilty for having that thought that this is not enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, it was really interesting because the me before wouldn't try things unless I'd be good at them.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Interesting.
Like, I wanted to be number one. I wanted to like do really well. Like, I just didn't give myself enough it was all about achievement and not about experience. And then after that accident, I was like, I don't care what it looks like.
Care. Yeah.
I don't care. I just like, I know my time's going to be over. This planet is a playground. I'm going to start playing.
And I think maybe one of the things that created that opportunity for you was you realize that what you think is certain is actually not certain at all.
Right.
And if nothing is certain, then maybe everything is possible, right?
Right.
And maybe status doesn't matter, and maybe just being successful and being the best is not really the point.
Right.
But maybe being on a journey is the point. Maybe there's dormant parts of you that were still there that you put off. And there's nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home mom. We actually did, like, both my wife and I took a step, like toned it down. We're both sort of really driven people. But we toned it down because we didn't want to miss anything. We have them for 18 years. Yeah. And I feel no regrets about that.
Yeah.
And then yet at the same time, there's other dimensions, right? There are dimensions that you might want to explore. And what is that? If you were speaking to somebody in the audience who is like either at the peak, but they just don't feel like, okay, it's a peak on paper, like exactly what you said, right? On paper, I'm supposed to be happy. And the same thing with me. I was on paper happy, but you're not. And then you don't make a change. What is that? Is it because status is you don't want to look like a fool because you're starting
I think a little bit, right? Or you have this brand that you are, right? Like everything's personal branding right now. And so you're known for this quality or this level or this integrity, like the whole thing. And so all of a sudden being new at something, challenge, like you're not the brand that you are in this other piece. So you have to be willing.
What if you fail? What if you suck? Right? What am I?
Yeah, right. And you do suck. Like, I don't care what you say. Like,
absolutely.
You suck.
You will suck.
Yeah.
And so what would you say to people that are on, like, they're going, I feel like I have this gut feeling that I should be shifting things, Maybe it's a seasonal thing. Maybe something just interests me. What would you say to them?
Oh, I'd say do it. Like now when I have it, I mean, I am all in on all things, because if there's something in you that's tugging at you,
Mm-hmm.
it's yours, right?
Yeah,
Like my mom and
I
I
think so
were at
too.
Costco shopping the other day, and when we got outside of Costco in Utah, there's gorgeous mountain range. Like it looks like it's painted. And I look at that mountain range, I'm like, I want to know what the top of every one of those mountains looks like, feels like. And
Mm-hmm.
my mom's like, I want absolutely nothing to do with those mountains except look at them from here,
Exactly.
And so what calls you or what gets you excited or what piques your interest, that's yours to
Yeah.
explore. It wouldn't pique your interest if it wasn't.
Yeah. So what? So what made the mountains the thing after the car accident?
So I made a bucket list of things I wanted to do, see, explore, all that kind of stuff, right? Like swim with sharks, taste pasta in Italy, like climb a mountain, blah, 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 blah. And I just allowed myself to like play and dream again and do whatever. And climb a mountain was on that list. And climb in 2020, I was turning 40. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to climb a mountain for my 40th birthday and launch that next decade of life
Yeah.
and just like do something significant. And so when I asked friends if they could climb one mountain in the whole world, what would it be? I live in Park City, so there's tons of mountaineers around here. They were like, climb Ama de Blanc. I'm like, Ama de Blanc? They're like, yeah, it's this beautiful mountain in Nepal. It's near the Himalayas. You'll get to see the Himalayan mountain range. You'll be in Nepal. It means the mother's necklace. It's the Paramount Pictures logo. So every time you go to a movie, you can say, I climbed that mountain. I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'm doing Ama de Blanc. Like, side note, I've climbed mountains everywhere. Ama de Blanc is still my favorite mountain. So they
Is
picked
that right?
right.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I'm training for Ama de Blanc. 2020 comes around, and this little thing called COVID enters the scene.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
I'm not training for anything or traveling anywhere. In fact, I'm homeschooling 7 children now because school is shut down.
Yeah.
And one day my son was like struggling with his math homework. I'm like giving him that parent pep talk we do. We do hard things. You've got this. Like,
Yeah.
finish
Yeah.
this up and we'll go outside and play. And he was in a mood. So he goes, Mom, if we do hard things, why are you climbing a mountain called I'm a Dumb Blonde instead of a real mountain like Mount Everest?
Oh, that's fantastic.
I'm like, I'm a dumb blonde. Ama the Blom, not I'm a dumb blonde, sweetheart.
Oh, that's
Right?
brilliant. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you can't even make it up. I'm like, and I
That's
think the
hilarious.
universe is funny, right? Like the universe
Oh,
truly is
totally.
funny. I'm like, oh, you're cute, universe. And so we look at Everest, he goes to bed, and I think to myself, I'm going to climb Everest. I'm going to show this kid that whatever Everest is, we're capable of summiting. Because I'm like a Barbie doll at this point, right? I've never slept in a tent. We go on hotel vacations. Like I won't run outside if it's crappy weather. Like I'm just not that person.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to show them that we can be any person we want at any time in our life. It's always available for reinvention and step into it. So I call a coach, and a coach is like, yeah, I can get you ready. He's like, buy this book about becoming an uphill athlete. I'm like, okay, cool. So I buy this book, and again, timing, universe, funny, funny. I'm reading it, and in the front, there's a story about a lady who got a Guinness World Record. The only book I can get my children to read during COVID is the Guinness World Record book, right? Like they want to know who grew the biggest pumpkin or fingernails or, all the weird stuff that's in that book. And I'm like joking with my coach. I'm like, if I got a Guinness World Record, I'd be the coolest mom in the whole world. And I'm not a cool mom right now. Like homeschooling's terrible. And my coach is like, oh, think of something. Don't worry about it. And a few weeks later, this guy calls me back, right? Like I thought it was like a conversation in passing. What? He calls me back. He's like, Jen, I have the perfect world record for you. I'm like, oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. What is it? He's like, I think should be the first female to climb the 7-second summits. I'm like, I don't know what you just said. What? 7 who? Second what? He's like, no, listen. Because the 7-second summits are the second highest point on each continent.
Okay.
I'm like, well, why would I want to climb the second highest? He's like, because they're harder than the first. They've never been done by a woman before. And think about it. 7 continents, 7 mountains, 7 children. It sounds like a jackpot. And for no reason whatsoever, I had one of those full body yeses. You know, a full body yes.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I'm doing this. I don't know anything about this, but I am in.
Oh my gosh, that is insane. That's a really good story. Now, reality though, right?
Yeah,
I have a
reality.
friend, okay? I have a friend who has led and participated in rescue missions on Mount Everest.
Yeah.
And until I met this friend, his name is Chris Shiver. And I didn't realize, I mean, I understood that climbing Mount Everest is really, really hard. I got that part. Had no idea exactly how hard it is. The altitude, the lack of oxygen, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
He described it to me in color, and I was blown away. And I'm looking at you right now, and I go, I don't understand how that works for somebody like you. You're
I
petite,
know.
you're blonde, you're
I know.
not dumb,
Oh, I was
definitely.
nicknamed Mountain Barbie.
Barbie,
Okay, because
exactly. That's
oh yeah, no,
exactly.
100% because I showed up to Mount Everest with a hair dryer.
No, you did not.
Oh yes, I did. I like when I was like, I'm gonna get sick and not be able to climb this mountain because I have long blonde hair and it's never gonna dry. What am I gonna do? And so I was when I was interviewing climbing companies, I
Okay.
asked, I'm like, okay, I have a hair dryer. Can you help? And the first company's like, cut your hair. You don't need it. Blah 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 blah.
Right,
The
exactly. Yeah.
second company's like, yeah, I think you can borrow the generator once a week. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And the third company was like, do you need a mirror? I'm like,
Oh,
ah,
y'all go
you're
with
my
you.
company.
That's
You're anticipating my needs. I need somebody that's anticipating my needs on this mountain. And so there's actually a company in Utah that makes these solar powered batteries. So they gave me this battery to bring over there to like blow dry my hair. And of course, I'm the idiot who like showers and then I go in my tent to hide to dry my hair because I don't want to make a scene. And it doesn't work because it's solar powered. And so it has to be on the sun. And so I'm like
So it needs to be with a
debating.
generator. Got it. Yeah, yeah.
Right. No, so like right, it's not a generator. It's right. So I literally have to go outside
Yeah.
in public and dry my which obviously flies through base camp within seconds.
Of
Dry
course.
my hair in front of people because I need to be in the sun. And then I got the nickname Mountain Barbie way before the Barbie movie came out.
That is brilliant, and I wish I could see the looks on people's faces.
Right, the stereotypical American, go figure.
Oh
But
my
here's like
gosh.
the cool thing about
People
that
rolling
story.
their eyes, right? But you still
Oh,
summited.
1,000%, like everybody, right? But
Yeah.
here's the thing that's cool about that story. So, of course, I was embarrassed. I didn't want to do it, whatever. I knew I needed to do it because I didn't want to get sick. I climbed the mountain, and after everybody climbs Everest, they meet in Kathmandu and kind of have this big celebration no matter what team you're on. And so we're having this celebration. Obviously, everybody knows me by now. And I had probably 5 or 6 women come up to me and say thank you. I'm like, what? They're like, thank you for having female needs and not denying them
Yeah.
and giving us permission to ask for things that we needed. And I think that's such life, right? Like we think we're like invading spaces or like whatever story we write to keep ourselves small, like freaking own who you are. Because when you own
Exactly.
who you are, it
Yeah.
allows other people to own who they are and everything comes together.
Okay, so my daughter, I have 3 daughters. The middle one, her name's 20. She's Violetta. She's 22, and she looks like exactly like Barbie.
Okay.
She's gonna love this piece. She's gonna Instagram this moment
Right,
in the interview.
Instagram it. My dad interviewed a Mountain Barbie.
Exactly. She's like hair dry at Mount Everest. This is my kind of girl. She's gonna love you. So
Yes.
that is so cool. But obviously up to that moment of summiting even Mount Everest or any other of those peaks that are hard to climb, there are probably moments where you go, how did I get into this? I suck.
I paid for it.
Yeah.
Okay, like that's the worst part, right? Like you're
Yeah.
suffering, it's cold, you're peeing in a hole, you're eating food that has to have water to rehydrate it, and you're sitting on the side of the mountain, you're like, I paid for this. Like
Yeah.
I paid a lot of money actually to be
It's
here.
expensive, yeah.
What is wrong with me?
And it's I'm sure it's also super painful, and there's no guarantee of success, right?
No.
So what is the process of making a decision, which is obviously a whole body yes, you expressed it, right? Like that's I
Yeah.
get it. That's an impulse. That's a aha. I've had several of those. I love those, and I think a lot of people wish they could do that. But I think what's harder, it's the first day of actually doing something about it,
Yeah.
where reality sets in. Why
And the
did I
work
get myself
begins.
into it? The
Yeah.
work begins.
Yeah.
And you have to fight from incompetence to competence.
Yep.
Can you tell me what that process was for you?
Yeah. So I created an avatar,
Okay.
right? So, well, a couple things happened here first. One, when I announced to my children that I was going to set this world record and climb 7 mountains, every one of them grabbed a mountain that was their mountain that they were going to like research and study and help me with, right? So accountability got
Okay.
notched up to the nth degree, where if I wasn't going to climb that child's mountain, I didn't like him as much as the other, like the
Oh, that's
BS
good.
things kids say to us to hold us accountable,
That's good.
right? So that like really clicked in. And then for me, it was like, okay, what is like a person that summits Everest think about, eat, study? Like, what is that person? Who is that person? And so I started creating an avatar of Mountain Barbie and how she ate and how she slept and what she did and what her thoughts were and where she would do that kind of stuff. And I like connected to that avatar every day until I became that avatar.
So this is a really powerful moment where I think I'd like to unpack that. You could be extremely successful in finance and you want to go into a tech startup, or if you can be an engineer and you want to start writing a book. It's one of those like, what, right? People around you, when your friends go, what is wrong with you? You have sort of, you on paper, you're supposed to be doing this. Don't do this, the potential ridicule. I really believe that imagining yourself as the person you want to become, it's the only sort of way to build this on, and thinking of what would that person sleep like, exercise like, eat like, and then just doing it is probably the way. Did you get that from somebody? Was it intuitive? Was it just, okay, I already told my kids and they all each have a mountain. I have no choice. I can't back out. I need to figure this thing out. How did that work for you? How did you get
So I
that
told my
motivation?
kids first, right? And I didn't tell anybody else first because everybody else's response would be crazy.
Yeah.
And I already had fed that, like I didn't need any more fuel, right? So the nice thing is that my coach that I worked with knew people that had summited Everest. So then introduced me to people that summited Everest. I went out to lunch. This is like this is what made it happen. I went out to lunch with one of these guys that summited Everest, and he spilled ketchup on his shirt. I'm like, if that guy can climb Everest and spill ketchup on his shirt, I'm good to go.
There you go.
Right?
I like that.
And so then like all of a sudden you start normalizing this thing that was so abnormal before.
That makes a lot of sense.
That it becomes easy because it's like, okay, you did it and I just saw you do this and I could do that. So we're the same, like you kind of, you normalize it. So then when by the time I told my parents, cause I knew they were going to be an HE double hockey stick. No. I was so convinced and so in it and so all of it that there was no space for that to stick. Yeah. And so then they had no choice but to join my enthusiasm.
Wow. Now, what did that look like when it comes to change of lifestyle, schedule? Yeah. Tell me about that.
Here's where the rubber meets the road. I remember, so I have this coach. I'm like, okay, well, I run a business and I'm a mom. And so I'll give you my calendar on Sunday and we'll fit my workouts in. And so on Sundays, I'd give him my space in my calendar. And he's like, you're not climbing a molehill, let alone a mountain like Everest, if you give me this kind of spacing. Right. And so that's the fun thing about restriction. It makes you creative.
Yeah.
And so we would look at my calendar. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to buy one of those treadmills that goes underneath a desk, and any Zoom meeting that I can be on that I don't need to be on camera, I'm going to be doing steps. I'm going to go to a soccer game and I'm that mom in the corner with a 12-inch step up and a backpack full of weights. And I'm going to be doing step ups that entire hour-and-a-half soccer game so I can watch my kid and still get a workout in. Is it ideal? No. Is it better than a 0? 100%. So my goal
also consistent.
Consistent, right? Right. So, and I put little step ups all over my house, and I made little rules. Every single time I left my door or the back door, I'd run up a flight of stairs and down, and then I could leave the back door. And you just do these little things because little things accumulate.
They accumulate. They absolutely. Consistency is the key.
Yeah.
It's not this grand scale, you know, Rocky Balboa situation.
Right.
It's daily stuff, right?
Yeah. You have a rule, like don't take elevators. Like just silly little things that don't sound silly until all of a sudden they add 1,000 feet at the end of the month. That adds up.
Mm-hmm. So how did it feel? What was the first mountain you climbed after that decision?
Okay, so my first mountain was Ama de Blanc.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a dumb blonde, yeah.
I'm a dumb blonde, which will be ingrained in your head for the rest of your life anytime you see it. You'll be like,
will
oh,
be.
that's the I'm a dumb blonde mountain.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Jen. That whole experience, I mean, it's like, it's the first, right? Like,
Yeah.
so magical. I remember, like, I was 3 steps away from being, like, there's nowhere to step, like, you were at the top.
Yeah.
And, like, you slow down because you
course.
know those 3 steps are, like, the end. Like, you're there and you want to take it in. And after that 3rd step, I stood still and I took in the deepest breath I could. And on that inhale, the world disappeared. There was no sun, there was no mountain, there was no me, there was no 7,500 miles between my kids and I. It was like this moment of awe. Just everything was just awe. And then you breathe out, and then like life starts to come back to like, okay, now it's cold. I can feel the breeze, the sun's shining, blah, 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 blah. And you take those breaths, and before you leave that mountain, it's almost like you take your soul out of your body and you throw it out into the universe and be like, I can't wait till I find you again. And you start the climb down because you realize it is in the pursuit that we become.
Mm-hmm. It's the process. You need to fall
Yeah.
in love with the process, right?
You do. The process, it's just, it's invigorating.
Mm-hmm. Fall in love with it. The hard parts, the good parts.
All of it. Because it gives dimension and depth and contrast and color and just all the pieces.
So was Everest in any way distinct in that list?
Everest was distinct because I remember, I mean, Everest is like, you know, Everest is Everest, right? So and I was on the top of Mount Everest for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Right? Like I trained 1,238 hours. Like, I mean, if you think of all the work and pieces and parts and like how many people were involved for me to climb Everest, from babysitters at home to people that brought oxygen tanks and cooked food and tents and pilots and like all of the things that had to go into motion for me to stand on the top of that mountain for 10 minutes.
For 10 minutes. Yep.
It's just like you can't even put words to it.
And I think at the same time, it helps us understand that, look, you're playing football, you win the Super Bowl, you get that ring on, you have a party, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
And what drives you for the rest of your life is not getting the ring.
It's not.
It's being with those people.
Yeah, it's creating something with others, right? It's an achievement that's a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
Because getting to the top by yourself isn't worth it. And what's crazy to me on Everest is of the people that don't summit, I would say 90% of them is mindset versus physical abilities.
Really?
It's just shocking.
And I think that's true in life in general.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I do. It becomes very black and white in that environment.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think, hey, if you enjoy my podcast, you're going to love my weekly newsletter. Every week, I share strategies for success and significance because, let's be honest, who doesn't want both? We're talking life-changing wisdom that has transformed my life and the lives of people I've coached all over the world. You can start with the free version, but if you upgrade to the paid version, you'll unlock exclusive perks like early access to my monthly webinars, interviews with top experts, and even a signed copy of my book. Subscribe at christianrayflores.com. Your future self will thank you. I think that's why I'm such a huge believer in even this, right? Us sharing stories with each other. Yeah. And then when we help somebody in business or like I coach people or mentor, is that I really truly believe that most of the stuff, the hard stuff, can be done by actually most people. You know, there's exceptions, right? And like I'm not going to dunk a basketball. clearly.
Right.
There are exceptions, but generally speaking, you can do a lot. You have no idea what you're capable of unless you commit to it, unless you say that yes, that whole body yes that you said, unless you create a persona and start doing steps in like random places. You have no idea. You have no idea what you're capable of. And I think the most unhappy people on earth are the people that never try.
Right.
Or give up.
Yeah.
When things get hard, right?
I agree. There's so much. I mean, life is just meant to be tasted and tried on, and like all those little pieces. And if you're not expanding, you're shrinking. And I don't think we're here to shrink.
I agree. So tell me the last mountain that you climbed, the 7th, right? In that list.
Well, so crazy story. There's actually 9.
Okay.
There's 9 because there's a dispute on what's a continent. Okay. Like, I don't know how in today's day and age that we can have disputes on what constitutes a continent, but we do. So I thought I was done. I climbed Mount Logan. I summited on June 1st of 2023 and filed it with Guinness World Records. And they're like, well, there's actually these other mountains you should probably check out just to like cover all bases, you know? And so I quickly went to Switzerland and climbed Mount Rosa there because the second highest point in Europe is Russia. Mm-hmm. But if people don't think of Russia as part of Europe, then I needed to do.
It's Eurasia, technically, right? It's sort of in the
so
middle.
Because of so like if Russia is part of Asia, then K2 would be the highest point, and I did K2. So anyway, so I climbed this mountain in Switzerland, and then this last mountain, which is in Indonesia, because I climbed a mountain in Australia, but some people consider Indonesia part of Asia, like 99.9% of every human I've ever met in my life. And there's a percentage out there that thinks of Indonesia as part of Australia.
Interesting. Really? I didn't know that. I've never heard of that.
Believe you me, I'm on the same page. So the interesting thing about this mountain in Indonesia is that since 2017, there's been a civil war. Right? It hosts the largest gold mine in the world. And it shares a landmass with Papua New Guinea. So the Papua New Guinea people think they should own the whole island and have the gold mine. Mm-hmm. The Western Papua people think that they should own the whole thing because it's Western Papua. But Western Papua is a province of Indonesia. So Indonesia thinks it should own the whole thing because of this. And so there's this like 3-way tribal war.
Interesting.
So we have not, like, no one's been allowed to go in there and climb. And then finally we got word in April of 2024 that, hey, the mountain's going to open, like they're going to let tourism in and like people can go climb in that area again. Because if you're climbing the 7 summits and you want to hit the Indonesia mountain, it's right next door, right? And so there's like a long list of everybody who's been dying to get this mountain done because it's been closed for 7 years. Or not my mountain, but the other one.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we book flights and they're like, never mind, you can't come. Book flights, can't come. Book flights, can't come. So in August, they're like, hey, guess what? It's not going to happen. We're sorry. Like, chief of police got replaced, like all this turmoil stuff. And then the day that I was supposed, like, you still kind of like your body remembers, like, oh, I was supposed to be in Indonesia today. And it was like at the end of September because we were going to climb the first week in October. And then at the end of September, we get a call. Hey, guess what? We're going to let you in. Come on over. So I fly the next day, like one day later than I'm like, I'm going. I'm going to be there. So if they say yes, we can go and we're ready to go.
Yeah.
So we get there. It is 16 days of aggressive standby. Okay?
Yeah.
What aggressive standby means, you get up every day and from 6 to 8:30 in the morning, you go to the airport and you hope they're going to let you fly up to where this mountain is. And if for some reason they don't, you go home and you change hotels and locations because you're a target. And so they don't want to have an established pattern because you're not really welcomed in this area.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, and like every day you're like, am I being crazy being here? Like I have kids at home. No one's climbed this mountain. Are they going to really let us in? they finally like landed some helicopters with some security that kind of cleared the area or checked things out. And then they let us go. So we landed, and within 15 minutes, we were like running through this section because we're going into rebels territory and there's no security.
Yeah.
And if we're kidnapped or killed, we're eaten because they're cannibalism. It's cannibals because they believe
lovely.
that if they eat you, they get your
Yeah.
qualities. Right? So they have to ingest you. So you're like, okay, the helicopter triggered that we're here. So people know we're here. You can't make a helicopter quiet. So you had to run like the first 2 hours of the climb because then you got high enough up that they don't have to close to do the cold weather. So they think it's a bad omen to go up there. I mean, it's crazy.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I've done crazy things like that, but I don't think I've ever been at the risk of being eaten. That's a new thing that I haven't experienced.
Oh yeah, it's a new thing for me too. Yeah. Do not recommend it.
Oh, that's great. So you climbed that one. That was the last one, the 9th?
Yeah, that's the last one.
How did it feel?
You know, like it felt really good when I did Mount Logan. I had known about this Indonesian dispute, so I was like, I wonder if people are going to poke at me because I didn't climb the Indonesian mountain, but I wasn't allowed to because it was closed. I did not know about the Russian dispute, so that was new to me. So I will say that the difference now of having all of them done with no question, no doubts, nobody can say anything in the back of the audience about, hey, this mountain feels amazing, right? Yeah. Like when you stand in integrity, it feels amazing.
So the book Breakproof.
Yeah.
Tell me what are the main things that you're trying to communicate to people?
You know, I think the biggest takeaway for me is big mountains take big teams. I think we set these huge goals for ourselves and we expect to climb the mountain alone. And the reality is whatever our metaphorical mountain is, it takes a village, it takes a team, it takes a collaborative effort to get to the top. And if you're ever chasing something like a goal or a desire, and you're starting to feel tired, or like maybe I was overshooting, or I want to renegotiate with myself, that's not the time to do that. That's the time to say, like, who can help me? Because I'm taking the load too far by myself.
I like that. That's fantastic. That's a great takeaway. I really think so. Yeah.
I mean, it's something I have to chronically evaluate my own life on. Yeah. Like, I'm getting grouchy. I'm getting overwhelmed. Okay, I'm doing too much. What can I share?
What does the future hold for you after this chapter's behind?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm speaking on stages, which I absolutely love because I love the energy and, like, you know what it's like to perform on stage.
Yeah.
That like energy exchange just cannot be beat.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And then when somebody says something to you of, you know, I walked to get my mail today, or I went to visit my grandma because I didn't know if she's going to make it. Like they do these little life shifts because of something you said or something you read. Like there's no greater gift.
Yeah. Interesting. That's fantastic. Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, Jen, you're an inspiration. You're fun, and you're gonna be very popular with my daughters.
Yay! So, I'm kind of a girl fan, so there you go.
Yeah. So thank you for being that person that inspires girls to just embrace it. And I just love the story of the accident, of sort of the reframing of life, and that and more than that, it's not just inspiration. It's doing the work.
Yeah.
Doing the work, and then engaging the people, the team that you needed to get to those mountains, to climb them.
Yep. It's an honor.
Again. That was great.
Yeah, thank you.